So we've been very active, as you can see, in the courts, trying to protect the environment, trying to protect consumers, going after people who are violating the drug trafficking laws. All these cases are very factually different, but they all have one thing in common. In each of these cases, we did a comprehensive investigation, and at the end of the day, we concluded that there were sufficient facts, sufficient evidence to warrant taking aggressive legal action. However, it's important to point out that for every case we file, for every case where we decide there is enough evidence to take action, there's a case we don't file. A case where we start with an allegation or a complaint, we investigate it thoroughly, and then we decide that there's not enough evidence to take legal action. The reason I point out this somewhat elementary fact is probably evident to several of you. I can see several nods, because, of course, this is precisely what has happened over the last few weeks in one of our most high-profile investigations at the Department of Justice, and that's the investigation of Mayor Sam Adams. I know that that case is of deep importance to people in the room and people in Portland, so I want to take just a minute before I close to talk about what we did and why we did it, so you'll have an understanding. The case for us began in January, on January 21st of 2009, when Police Chief Rosie Sizer and Multnomah County District Attorney Michael Strunk asked me to undertake an investigation of Mayor Adams to determine whether there was sufficient evidence to charge him with a crime. I'll say at the outset that this is very routine. In Oregon, when there is an allegation that a local official may be involved in public corruption, it's very common for local law enforcement officials to refer the case to the Oregon Department of Justice. In response, we began a 5-month investigation, and the goal was very simple. We tried to gather as much evidence as we could to see whether there was sufficient evidence to charge the mayor with the crime. We interviewed 57 witnesses, several of them on multiple occasions. We reviewed every relevant record we could find at City Hall and from Mayor Adams' campaign. We reviewed the contents of electronic devices like computers and cell phones. And at the end of that process, we all got together and we made our charging decision. As a prosecutor, I've made several hundred charging decisions in felony cases, and so this is a somewhat routine matter for me. And in all of those cases, you do the same thing. You gather all of your evidence, you look at it, and you ask yourself a simple question. Do we have enough evidence to go to a jury and tell them that the individual in question has committed a crime and we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? We did that process in the case of Mayor Adams, and we concluded that the evidence we had gathered fell far short of that standard. I can tell you that that decision was unanimous amongst the people who worked on the case at the Department of Justice. And it was also, for me, a very simple decision because the evidence did fall so much short of our standard. Accordingly, we did two things. We announced that we would not be seeking criminal charges against Mayor Adams. And second, we provided a report to District Attorney Michael Strunk and Chief of Police Rosie Sizer, the referring agency, explaining to them my charging decision, my decision not to seek criminal charges against the mayor. I know that decision pleases some people and it upsets some people. For all of you, no matter which camp you fall in, I would simply say one thing. The Adams case raised significant legal questions, significant ethical questions, significant political questions. As the prosecutor in the case, my job is to resolve the legal questions. That's what the criminal process does, and I'm confident that we have resolved those legal questions correctly. But it would be wrong for a prosecutor to try to resolve the moral or political questions. That's not my job. That's a job for the citizens of the city of Portland. As a law professor, my job before I became Attorney General, I taught classes in criminal law, but I also taught classes in legal philosophy and the philosophy of justice. And in those classes, I teach people that justice is certainly about holding people accountable when they violate the law, but it's about much more than that. Justice in the United States is ensuring that people are innocent until they're proven guilty. It's about making decisions based on the evidence and the law and not based on bias or suspicion or hunches. It is about making sure that your decisions are based on the evidence and the law and not on politics or political considerations. Those are the values that I bring to my job as Attorney General. Those are the values I bring to all of the cases that we consider. And those are all the values that I will bring to the job in my next 3.5 years as Attorney General. I really appreciate the opportunity to come today and look forward to coming back in 6 months or so and giving you another update on my first year in office. Thank you very much.